Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Lucore Automotive. It is time to start taking apart the 1979 AMC Spirit AMX. That little bulldog sitting on the rack behind me. Disassembly time. Gonna take everything out of it. All the rest of the interior, the engine, transmission, essentially everything is gonna come out of this car, get rehabbed, cleaned, and put back in it. We have a brand new, well, newish to me, 304 sitting on an engine stand that we're going to swap into this. We also have a 5-speed transmission out of a Mustang that we're going to swap into this. And it's got to all be done for less than $800. Yeah, no kidding. So, I'm going to start with draining the fluids out of this thing. Pull the radiator out of it, pull the drive shaft out of it, pull the wheels off of it, pull the transmission out of it, and then pull the half of the engine that's in there out of it. Once we have that all stuff done, we're going to clean everything and see what we got. And at that point in time, make a decision. Does it make sense to keep moving forward with this project? Can we get it done in our budget to be able to make this on the 2,500 mile, $2,500 road trip that we're going to be doing in the end of July, or not? The whole purpose of purchasing this car was to be able to take it on the 2,500 road trip. We did this road trip last year in August. We went from Columbus, Ohio, all the way to Devil's Tower, Wyoming. Absolutely epic trip. Had a ton of fun along the way. Definitely some shenanigans and hijinks and some headaches that were along the way. But all in all, I wouldn't have changed anything about it. It was an amazing experience. We met some great people along the way. We saw some incredible parts of this great country of ours. And it was just a fantastic experience. So Tim of Tim's Enthusiast Garage and I discussed it the other day and decided, you know what? This is something we want to do again. We've reached out to a couple of our friends that are possibly interested in this kind of thing and would actually come along for this crazy journey. And they are also going to be introducing cars to you that they're going to take on the 2,500 road trip. This was my bad decision that I'm going to use. Probably would have been smart to just buy a 2004 Toyota Camry with 190,000 miles on it and air conditioning and just drive it from here to the Florida Keys and back. It would make it. Now, that wouldn't be very exciting, and it wouldn't be very much of a video for you guys to watch, and I really don't want to take a Toyota Camry on the tail of the Dragon. I'm sorry, I don't. So, I bought this car for $1,700. I have to get it all done, essentially, for $2,500 or less, not including the safety stuff, so tires don't count. But I honestly don't know entirely what I'm getting myself into at this point in time. I'm new to this platform. I've never built one of these. I've never, honestly, as far as I know, seen one of these things. Very cool cars. Feel free to do plenty of homework of your own. They are pretty unique. I think we can get this thing done for under $2,500 as long as things more or less go the way we need them to go. If we run into a lot of headaches, we may be completely bust. But hey, that's old cars. So I'm going to get to work pulling fluids out of this thing, pulling the drive shaft out of it, getting ready to pull the transmission out of it, pull the radiator out of it, get ready to pull this thing completely apart, and then we'll go from there. So, time for me to get to work. Cue the time lapse. Now, I'm not particularly... Shut up. So, this is the oil drain. That's water and antifreeze. That's a good sign. Now again, this motor has been top half off for I have no idea how long. It's been exposed to the elements for I have no idea how long. It's had God only knows what in it. Clearly, it's not oil in there. I'm not 100% worried about it because this motor I really wasn't planning on doing anything with. Now, is the bottom end going to be okay? Maybe. Probably not. But I don't really care because I have another motor for this thing. One of the nice things about the AMC V8s is they're not terribly hard to find. So if this motor is huffed, don't really care that much. If that motor's huffed, I care a little bit more. But this is not optimal, but not that big of a deal. Could be a sign of things to come, though. Okay, so there was a little bit of tar in it. What may have once been oil. This motor probably isn't going to be available for sale to recoup any of my costs. Oh well. So, drive shaft U-joint bolts are loose. Back these things all the way, rest of the way out, and then the drive shaft should be able to come out. Tiny little drive shaft. If we're gonna make any power with this thing, this may need to get upgraded. No, Austin, don't start thinking about building power. Come on. Hooah! All right. Sometimes you just got to use a little persuasion. Check out my shaft. Hey, the transmission's actually got some fluid in it. Okay, so drive shaft's out. Time to get onto the transmission mounts and pull the transmission mount loose. And transmission bolts. Get ready to pull that out. Moving along. Now again, this is not a motor that we need to worry about the quality of what's coming out of this oil pan. Thankfully, because the stuff that's coming out of this is disgusting. This bottom end is probably pretty roached. God only knows what's been through it. Clearly the tar that's coming out of it is not a good sign, and the several gallons of coolant and water that came out of it's not a good sign. All of this was just to be able to drain out, pull stuff out of this motor so that when I do pull it out of the car, it's less of a chance for me to spill stuff all over the place, and it's less weight that I have to worry about, you know, lugging around with this thing. So we're gonna let that thing drain, I guess, a little bit more, and then whatever. Put the plug back in. Good enough. Now, as you can see, the bolts that go from the transmission cross member, the mount, to the transmission itself is quite gunky. So we're going to spray that with some degunking to get that to break loose, so we can get a socket on there and get that guy to pop loose, and then that comes off. Okay. Transmission mount, bolts all together. Ended up separating the top part from the bottom part of the transmission mount. This is not 100% shot, but pretty shot. Definitely would add some squishiness to the situation there. And our transmission mount, which is in essentially perfect shape, other than being a little muddy. So that's good. Put that in the parts washer. Start knocking some of the schmutz off of this, and once it's clean, we can paint it and then get it ready to go back in. Now, I don't know how that's going to work out with swapping over the T5. Whether we're going to have to modify the transmission mount, probably, but it's got some adjustment to it, so we may get lucky. We'll see. So at this point, I have the transmission ready to pull the bell bolts and the linkage, and then drop the trans down. So making progress. The coolant is already drained out of the motor, about 3 gallons of coolant and water out of that, plus like a couple quarts of tar. Popped the drain cock on the back or the bottom of the radiator, and it poured out just fine. So looks like the radiator was at least holding. Hopefully that's in good shape. That means I don't have to buy a radiator, because that's probably another $100 some odd that I don't want to spend on this budget. If we can use that radiator again, life would be good. So I'm going to toss this in the parts washer and start working on the bell bolts and such for the transmission. When I mentioned that AMC used whatever good parts they could find from whatever manufacturer, case in point, that's a Ford logo. This is a Ford 4-speed manual transmission. So we're just going to replace it with a Ford 5-speed manual transmission.
So the only thing I could think of is you have to get your hands up there and feel like the bottom two were 16 or 5/8. Okay, this is not fitting on those bolts up there. Like, it's just spinning, and I don't know if I'm not on the bolt or is it a different size, which doesn't make any fucking sense.
So that's 4 bell bolts so far. Easy ones to get to. Now oddly, not so oddly, we have different size bolts. It is what it is. Whenever you're working on old cars, a lot of times it's not the original stuff that was in there. So it is what it is. But we got the 4 lower ones off. Phil is finishing off removing the engine mounts. Once the engine mounts are loose, we can tilt this guy, get the top 2 bell bolts off, and then the transmission and bell housing is ready to slide back and slide off, and then the engine's ready to pull. So we're close. Got a couple more bolts to get loose, and we're done. Again, put them in a baggie. Not that I probably will ever reuse these, but put them in a baggie. One of the things you have to deal with a lot of times when you're putting something together or taking something apart that somebody else has been involved in is they don't always necessarily put them together with the same things that they came apart with. Engine mount bolt. Engine mount bolt. Not the same size. So it's a good little chunk longer than the other ones are. There's one that's almost the same size, but yeah, whatever. So engine mount bolts are out. We've got 4 of these 6 bell bolts out. We need to adjust this thing a little bit to be able to get to the top bell mount bolts. And once the bell housing is loose, we'll walk this transmission off, pull that out, drop the car down, and we should be able to pull the motor out the top. Yay, progress! All right. So, 2 bell bolts go into 2 bell bolts, 4 bell bolts, 6 bell bolts.
Remember, 16, 15, no, 16, 14, 15.
Yeah. Yeah, remember that. Note to self when putting the car back together.
Yeah.
16, 14, 15. All right, we should be able to shake, rattle, and roll this thing out of the car.
Yep.
If this goes terribly, it's documented. We're just gonna manhandle this out of the car. And by manhandle, I don't mean anything sexual or
Not handling
sexist.
your manhood. Handling a transition. Okay.
There's nothing sexual or sexist about this.
Ooh. Mouse nest in there for sure. Okay, so. Oh, now we're on the shifter a little bit. We gotta lower the tail end. Okay. That was difficult. Okay.
And yes, it does seem to be a two-piece. However, the two pieces are decided to
probably
become
very
one
few.
piece. All right.
After time, two pieces of metal become one.
Yes. They have been married.
Okay, so now let's go. Come out. About right now. Bring her down a little bit, huh?
Piece of cake, man. Oh, there's a good chance there's a dead animal in this bell housing.
Yeah, I know. I reached in there and I was kind of like, ooh, this is not good. It's kind of tilting towards you, by the way.
Yeah.
Kind of smells like it, too. All right, let's see. Get going down. All right. We're ready to come down when you are, boss. You want to walk it out over here?
We walk out.
Yeah.
So, definitely had some sort of small rodent creating a nest inside the bell housing of the transmission. I'll show you what we got in there. There's our lovely bell housing with most of my interior in it. There doesn't seem to be any actual animals in there, which is good. But yeah, so there's the interior padding of the car. Yeah. Hey. Okay, so transmission is removed. Motor mount bolts are removed. We should be able to pull the motor out top. So time to pull all the stuff out from underneath the car and yank the motor out of this thing. And then we're gonna call it quits. try this again. Taking the engine out of an AMC, part 2. All right, there we go. Transmission's out, engine's out, everything is out. Had to pull the hood off to be able to get it out, but not that big of a deal. We marked ourselves some center lines, so we should be able to get it reasonably close when putting it back on. All of the rubber lines are going to be replaced on this thing because it's been sitting for years. So just for safety's sake, we're going to go ahead and replace all those rubber lines because I don't want something popping and failing on me while I'm driving. And this thing is definitely going to be under a lot more stress than it's used to for the last 10 years. So we're going to see what we got now that we've got this thing apart. We're going to clean everything and really honestly take a good look at what we have. You never really know until you get the car apart just how much of a nightmare you get yourselves involved in. Obviously, as you guys saw, the amount of fluid that came out of this oil pan, not a real good thing. It was mostly all coolant and water, so I'm guessing the inside of this is destroyed. But I do need to steal the accessory drive off this thing and the exhaust manifolds and some other stuff. So got a lot of work ahead of me, but at least at this point in time, everything is out of the car. I just got to pull the seats out of it, which are not even bolted in. So not a big deal. We're going to call it a wrap at that point in time. It's hot. Phil, thank you very much, sir, for helping me one more time. And yeah, you know what? Just a weekend you could do with a friend. Take apart an old AMC. So thank you for watching. We appreciate you being here. If you haven't yet already subscribed, please go ahead and click on that subscribe button for us. Drop us a comment if you're interested in this project, in the 2500 road trip, or whatever else we do on this channel. Feel free to drop that in the comments. As always, click on the like button so it lets YouTube know that you actually pay attention to what we're doing and that you like what we do. So this project will continue. Obviously, at this point in time, it's not a car. So I need to, yeah, get a lot of work done before now and the end of July. So we'll see you later. Have a good one.